Okay, so just to talk a little bit more about this priestly tradition, Yahwist tradition idea. So if we have the end of the priestly at 2:4a, it said, these are the generations of the heavens and the earth when they were created. And then, by all appearances, we have a different tradition, if you will, a different strand of story, of narrative that gives us, where in Genesis 1, Adam is created as male and female from the beginning. In Genesis 2, the Holy One says, well, it's not good for the human to be alone, for the Adam to be alone. And just quick observation, I've made this point many times in many contexts. In Genesis 1, as you know, repeatedly, God saw that it was good, at every step of the way, and then finally God saw that it was very good. So when Genesis 2:18 says, then the Lord, now again, remember, the term Lord, this holy name, is not found in that first story. So 2:18, then the Lord said, it is not good that the man should be alone. And what I say often, and I say it often because I believe it, there is no way in the world that first story could ever have even hinted that God would see something, not good. The whole thing is good, 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 good. So, for 2:18, the Lord says it's not good for the human to be alone. And again, in Genesis 1, the Adam, the human, is not alone. Adam is created male and female from the beginning, with at least one intention being to reproduce. And so you've got this very different story in Genesis 2 where God looks at this human creature that isn't necessarily a male, in fact is probably something more androgynous, such that when the surgery occurs, it's something like dividing this being into two, a male side and a female side. I should add that I do not, and I don't encourage you, but I do not take that literally as like, that God performed this kind of surgery and so on. You may find that shocking. I don't know. So if you go to the end of chapter 4, you'll see that it says at that time, people began to invoke the name of the Lord, of the Holy One. So you see that name and its importance is inscribed into this tradition. And interestingly enough, chapter 5 very likely picks up back with the priestly. So remember that it ended. These are the generations of the heavens and the earth when they were created. And then at chapter 5, this is the list of descendants of Adam. I guess it could be Adam there. Adam is the Hebrew term for humanity. So certainly in the second use of it, also in 5:1, when God created Adam, he made them in the likeness of God. And remember, that's language of Genesis 1. Let us make Adam in our likeness, in our image according to our likeness. So you kind of have this restating of things that are in Genesis 1, but not in Genesis 2. Male and female, he created them, and he blessed them and named them Adam. Again, that's the term, when they were created. You might have a Bible that even tells you. Mine says in English, named them humankind, but then has a note about, the Hebrew word is Adam. Okay, so it appears that the priestly tradition picks up then again in chapter 5. You might notice in chapter 6 when we have the beginning of the flood story, you'll see 1 through 8. You'll see the name of the Lord appears many times. Verse 5, the Lord, again, that signifies the holy name, saw that the wickedness of Adam was great in the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of their hearts was only evil continually. And the Lord was sorry. The Lord was sorry that he had made Adam, and it grieved him in his heart. Now, you might notice that if you go to the end of chapter 5, after Noah was 500 years old, Noah became the father of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Then if you skip over to chapter 6, verse 9, it seems to flow pretty smoothly. These are the descendants of Noah. He was a righteous man, blameless in his generation. So it appears, my goodness, these are the descendants of Noah. So again, you lose the language of the Lord. It's back to Elohim or God, and it really appears that 532 flows pretty nicely into 6:9 with this little bit of Yahwist material in between. Now you could read the rest of chapter 6 and go through at least verse 22. Yeah, rest of chapter 6 is priestly. Chapter 7, in fact, if you look at this carefully, I might even have something I can post that breaks this down. It really does appear that we have two different renditions of the story of Noah. One we'll call priestly. Sometimes it's called the Elohist, from the term Elohim for God. And there might even be some distinctions at times between the priestly and the Elohist. That goes beyond my pay grade, as a theologian. But the other is this Yahwist tradition that most scholars actually think is the earliest. That is the oldest written Hebrew tradition that's included in Genesis. Now, all of this might be pretty new to you, or maybe not. I suspect if you've had any kind of Old Testament class, either at the undergrad or even in our MA program, something like this probably was addressed at some point to some extent. So when, of course, you don't have to accept this. All the evidence is pretty clear. Lofink, I haven't checked the specific passage in mind. I do remember that he uses the language of priestly tradition or the priestly account. That's not that critical to reading this book unless he makes a big deal out of it. He's probably just, wanting to make sure that his readers know that he acknowledges that we have, different oral/written traditions that went into the composition of Genesis. I might as well just point out that this is sometimes called the documentary hypothesis. In fact, often it's called that. Different documents, or at least we'll say textual traditions, at some point being edited together by Jewish scribes, undoubtedly. And this, of course, makes the idea that, the very traditional idea that Moses is the author of, all of the Torah or the Pentateuch. This idea, based on close analysis of the language of the text, and often the themes that are included in along with particular languages, seem to suggest several strands of narrative that have been again woven or somehow combined. Point being that this definitely does not follow the conventional, traditional idea that like Moses was the author. You have instead, and it's certainly quite possible that Moses, and it might even be likely, I don't know enough of the Old Testament scholarship to say, but that Moses stands at the fountainhead, we'll say, of one of those streams of tradition, very likely not all of them. But again, the idea that Moses wrote it all, and it doesn't hold up very well under careful literary, historical readings. Some people are opposed to such readings. Those people, in my judgment, are just closing their eyes to really good, strong evidence, and that never seems to me to be like the proper Christian response to challenges to our, maybe what we assumed before. I hope this helps. I hope it doesn't hurt. But that's a little bit about this distinction between traditions. I will see also as I post this, if I don't have a couple documents that I could, share with you that might lend a little bit more insight, or something you can actually look at besides my this. All right, blessings. Bye-bye.